WUSF News as well at 12:04. And they encourage you to call in and email in to Florida Matters Live and Local. It's a show for you, and you're being asked to contribute. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. You are listening to WUSF 89.7 Tampa, broadcasting from studios at USF Tampa and USF Sarasota Manatee.
Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, specializing in custom furniture and functional spaces designed to make life and work easier at home. Featuring 2 full-service showrooms and design services for residential and trade clients. More information at adelaide.com.
Later this week, the city of Orlando marks a somber milestone, 10 years since a gunman murdered 49 people at the Pulse nightclub. At the time, it was the worst mass shooting in modern American history. As June is Gun Violence Awareness Month, we're taking some time this hour to talk about the debate over gun violence prevention and the challenges facing violence prevention advocacy. Also on Florida Matters Live and Local, how safe is off-campus housing? The stabbing last week at a housing complex near the University of South Florida is raising questions, coming just weeks after the killing of USF doctoral students Nahida Bristi and Zamil Limon. Later in the show, we'll chat with Florida-based novelist Kevin Powers about his new novel, stretching from rural Virginia to the World War I battlefields of France. And it's summertime, so all this week we're talking about summer-themed activities, from beach reads to summer camps. Today, staycations. What's your go-to staycation destination or activity in Tampa Bay? Call 813-755-6562. First, news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The latest round in the midterm election year fight is being held today across Nevada, North Dakota, South Carolina, and Maine. Maine is one of those states where Democrats see a path to winning the U.S. Senate. But NPR's Sage Miller reports the party's hopes for ousting longtime Republican incumbent Susan Collins rests with Graham Plattner, the presumptive Democratic nominee whose campaign has been riddled with controversy.
Plattner is a combat veteran turned oyster farmer. He's a political newcomer, and he's had to answer a lot about his past since launching his campaign less than a year ago. Most recently, the New York Times published a story where Plattner's previous romantic partners described him as toxic and as a person who does not respect women. Plattner spoke to our colleagues at Maine Public, saying he believes these stories serve as a distraction away from the political movement he is building. He also told Maine Public he doesn't think his past will haunt him at the primary ballot box.
NPR's Sage Miller. The Pentagon says a U.S. military helicopter went down near the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. 2 crew members were safely rescued. U.S. Central Command disclosed the information this morning, but President Trump confirmed it last night. NPR's Greg Myrie reports U.S. forces are in the area enforcing a U.S. naval blockade.
The 2 crew members in the Apache helicopter crashed as they were patrolling near the coast of Oman and not far from the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command said they were rescued in the early hours of Tuesday, about 2 hours after the crash. Both are in stable condition. The military statement said the cause was under investigation. There have been no reports of hostilities in that area. U.S. forces are operating close to the strait, but generally not inside it, to enforce the U.S. blockade of ships going to or from Iranian ports. Iran is enforcing its own blockade. Few oil tankers or other commercial ships are passing through the Gulf due to the dueling blockades. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Gas prices remain high with no end in sight. They're taking a toll on people's budgets, NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports.
In South Carolina, Mabel Lago and her husband have put off their plan for long road trips in retirement, but she worries they'll run out of time.
At some point, you don't want to drive at a certain age.
In Ohio, middle school music teacher Matt Kiesel has seen the cost of his hour-long commute double. Come fall, he's considering staying part-time with siblings in the city where his job is.
But then again, I'm away from my family and I'm away from my kids and my partner, and I don't want to have to do that.
Some can't get to work at all because of high prices. Alan Bashir at the United Way helpline in Baltimore says a recent caller worried she'd be fired after missing 2 days.
Because, she couldn't pay for her fuel for her car.
And there was little help Bashir could offer.
That's Jennifer Ludden. It's NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include United States Postal Service, dedicated to putting reliability at the core of USPS Ground Advantage to help businesses operate smoothly. More at usps.com/Ground Advantage.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. If you have traveled along Gulf Boulevard in Pinellas County, you have probably seen somebody driving a golf cart. WUSF's Maria Avlanides reports the Indian Rocks Beach City Commission is scheduled to vote tonight on tightening its rules to match Florida law about who can drive one.
The change was brought up at the commission's meeting last month. City Attorney Matthew Maggard presented the new ordinance.
In review of our ordinance golf cart regulations, we discovered that wasn't quite in compliance with Florida law.
Right now in Indian Rocks Beach, you only have to be 14 years old to drive a golf cart. In 2023, Florida lawmakers voted to require golf cart drivers to have a valid learner's permit or driver's license if they're a minor, or be at least 18 years old and have a photo ID. Maria Avlonitis, WUSF 89.7 News.
Temple Terrace officials are looking for ways to reduce the high level of so-called forever chemicals in their water supply. This comes after a report showed that the city has nearly 5 times the recommended limits for PFAS. Installing a filtration system for the short term could cost the city about $3 million a year. And city manager Carlos Baya told the city council recently it could cost as much as $70 million to revamp the water treatment plants.
We're just trying to quantify that and make sure that if that is an option, when we can get it, where we would put it, how much it would cost, and bring all that information back to the city council.
In the meantime, the city wants to know what it would take to hook up to Hillsborough County's water system. The westbound I-4 ramp to downtown is going to be closed overnight, weather permitting. You will be detoured onto northbound I-275 and then turn back around at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard onto southbound I-275. They're installing overhead signs. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF News.
No political jargon, no talking heads, just smart, clear reporting on what Florida's government is doing and how it hits home. That's Your Florida. We cover the issues so you can decide what matters most.
Baycare is here for your life's big moments and everyday care. With 16 award-winning hospitals and hundreds of locations, the region's largest academic health system is always close to home. Find a Baycare location near you at baycare.org/everywhere.
This is Florida Matters live and local, broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Coming up in a few moments, we're going to talk about St. Pete Pride, but first, a powerful earthquake struck off the northwest coast of Cuba yesterday afternoon. While the epicenter of the 6.1 magnitude quake was deep in the Gulf of Mexico, the quake rattled buildings in Miami and sent light fixtures swaying here in Tampa and lit up social media all across the entire Sunshine State. And here to talk more about the earthquake is Dr. Johan Brandmiller, a seismologist and research professor at USF South School of Geosciences, I should say. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Brandmiller.
Thank you for having me.
So this earthquake happened hundreds of miles away near Cuba. Why did people all over Florida feel the quake?
The earthquake was strong enough, a magnitude 6 earthquake, that can be felt several hundred miles away from where the earthquake actually happened. Mm-hmm. So it is not unusual that people would feel it in places like central Florida, even to northern Florida, 400, 500, 600 miles or so away from an earthquake.
So sometimes when you have an earthquake like this, there's a risk of tsunamis, right? That wasn't the case in this earthquake, though?
This earthquake happened about 15 miles below the ground, and it was a magnitude 6 earthquake. So the rupture area that ruptured during that earthquake was smaller, so it didn't reach the seafloor. For a tsunami to generate, you need to move the seafloor and generate a wave where you vertically displace water.
Okay. So should people in Cuba and maybe Florida as well expect any more tremors, like aftershocks, in the next few days?
There will be some aftershocks, but they most likely will be too small to be felt in Florida. This is different in places like Yucatan or northwestern part of Cuba, where they most likely will feel several aftershocks of magnitude 4 and possibly even a little bit larger that are strong enough to be felt locally, but not in Florida.
Is Florida maybe at higher risk for earthquakes than we might think?
I don't think so. I think the earthquake risk in Florida or the hazards from the tectonic plates are fairly low because we are not close to any plate boundary. That doesn't mean that we will not have any earthquakes that are felt in Florida, but within Florida itself, I don't expect to have any large earthquake.
Well, Dr. Johan Brownmiller, seismologist and research professor from USF's School of Geosciences, thank you so much for your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Well, turning now to Pride. June is Pride Month, and it's a time of joy and celebration for the LGBTQ+ community everywhere. St. Pete is home to the largest Pride parade in the state, but 2026 may be the last year the celebration gets to be as big and bold as it has been in the past. Governor DeSantis signed a bill banning cities and counties from funding or promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and that goes into effect January 1st next year. But even with a murky future, this year's Pride Month is shaping up to be another beautiful celebration of love. And here to tell us how Tampa Bay celebrates Pride Month is President of St. Pete Pride, Byron Green-Kalish. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And if you want to weigh in, maybe you're celebrating Pride Month yourself, or you've got concerns about the future of this event with new laws kicking in, you can give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. What does Pride Month mean to St. Pete? I mean, it is sort of billed as the biggest in the Southeast, so people think about it, they look forward to it every year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you did a really great job there, kind of describing our ethos. We recognize that we are in year 24 of celebrating Pride in St. Pete. It was founded in the Grand Central District and really has grown and grown and grown as a organization that's based in community. Every single board member, the one employee that we have, all of the vendors, none of those people started this organization. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that to date, we have been able to grow and expand and continually have new board members come in and new partners come in and join us is a part of the history that we really tout. We're really excited about.
So if it's based in community, does that give you some hope that no matter what happens at the state, local government level, this will endure in some form?
I will say this very clearly and very plainly, that Pride started as a riot, that in 1969 we were fighting an oppressive government, and we celebrate every year after that that civil disobedience, that St. Pete Pride is committed to continuing in whatever iteration that we will be able to do. We may look different. We may be smaller. We may not have as big of a footprint. We are going nowhere, though. We are absolutely committed to bringing in what will be our 25th year next year and marching strongly ahead. I think you will see this year a lot more calls very boldly asking people to donate to our nonprofit to keep Pride as it is, to keep Pride free, that we can continue to make it accessible to our community members. So we want to have that conversation now preemptively, knowing that we are raising money today that is going to sustain us into next year.
The number is 813-755-6562. If you're just joining Florida Matters Live and Local, talking with Dr. Byron Green-Kalish with St. Pete Pride. If you're celebrating Pride Month, maybe you've got some concerns about the way things are going politically and what might happen to Pride Month next year with these headwinds, give us a call, 813-755-6562. So, how much does it cost to put this on? Because it is a big deal, right?
It is. Our annual budget is just under $1 million. So that's a hefty sum to raise, but we have a team of our board of directors is a group of volunteers. We also have about 200 volunteers that help really make the events in the month of June and early May make those happen. So we push really hard. We partner with a lot of our sponsors, our community advocates, and most importantly, our community members that are donating $1, $5 to really help us sustain.
Mm-hmm. There is a bit of a deficit though, right? I think I read that it was like $180,000 you were looking at in terms of deficit because some corporate sponsors had pulled out.
You do your homework. You are correct. Yeah, that is about where our deficit is today. Unfortunately, we have had a few of our sponsors have to step away. And for those that work in philanthropy, understand that raising money is a lot about relationships and understanding that sometimes budgets dip and people have different reasons for why they have to step away. But our goal is always to maintain those relationships. So we have hope that they'll be able to come back when their financial situations are able to change. But for those that stepped away for fear of DEI or retribution based off of our state's legislature, we have to have the hard conversations about what does support and advocacy and allyship look like. Even when it gets hard, that our community is not a stranger to allies that want to wave a rainbow flag when it's fun and it's easy. But this work is about doing the hard work when it is inconvenient, when it is throwing bricks and it is stepping up and standing up for lives that are just meant to be lived and to be celebrated.
Is that something of a is it kind of difficult to reconcile those two things? Because you talk about, the rainbow flag, and you do see a lot of rainbow flags in businesses and the like, but do you find yourself questioning the depth of that commitment a little bit yourself?
The commodification and capitalism of it all. Absolutely, sure. I question it because I recognize that pride is a lucrative business, that businesses are able to capitalize on the goodwill of our community. Our community does have a little bit more of disposable income stereotypically. So, or people want to spend money with businesses that are more inclusive. But at the heart of the heart of this movement is not about capitalism. It is not about how much money can be spent. It is, however, about celebrating joy as a form of resistance, that we are in the middle of the fight all year long. We get battered and bruised, and we come to the month of May and we get the chance to remember the sacrifices of our forefathers and our foremothers and foresiblings that really fought the fight early on before we had the opportunity to. So the Bayard Rustins, the Marsha P. Johnsons, the Sylvia Riveras, all of those phenomenal, the Audre Lordes, the Polly Johns, like all of those activists that were in the fight before it was in vogue, before it was easy to just wear the rainbow. They were doing the work. And I recognize, and I want to say that the rainbow, each one of those colors stands for something and a reminder to us, specifically in the queer community that lost so many of our elders during the AIDS epidemic, that we don't have a ton of elders. So though that flag is a representation of not only them, but also as we have progressed, that our pride flag has changed to now where we use the progressive flag, recognizing and including more Black and brown and trans individuals and asexual and other people inside of our community, that we are a big tent. So we want to make sure that that flag represents that big tent, but we never forget that at the heart of this is civil disobedience, and we're celebrating the joy that comes from that.
So it's inclusive, you're welcoming people in, but there is that spirit of protest that carries through.
Absolutely. That protest we are a protest at its core, and reminding people that protests are not always angry. Protests are not always violent, that the voice of the oppressed is the voice of the oppressed, that we get to choose how we show up. And historically here in the Americas, we have chosen joy as the vehicle for that protest and the remembrance of that protest. Sometimes you are correct that the capitalism of it all does tend to drag people one way or to the other. But here at St. Pete Pie, we really do try to ingrain deeply every chance that we have the opportunity to our board members, to our volunteers, to how we show up, how we program, the reminders of the people that came before us, that this is an act of civil disobedience. To show up publicly in all of your authenticity is an act of resistance.
Byron Green-Kalish, he's the president of St. Pete Pride. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I love coming here.
Well, coming up next, think before you swim with an open wound. We'll talk about a bacteria that lurks in warm water. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
I'm Ricardo Cuomo, and I'm a WUSF Zimmerman School Radio News intern. At WUSF, I found an incredible group of people who supported me and taught me a lot throughout my time here. Everything I know about the radio industry, I owe it to them, and all the amazing opportunities I've had as an intern. With your help, future journalists like me can get the opportunities we need to grow in our careers.
For nearly a century, St. Petersburg College has been a guiding light for the communities of Tampa Bay, empowering generations to rise out of poverty and build more prosperous lives. More at SP College, Pathway to Better.
When it comes to bringing you the news, WUSF has your back. But WUSF counts on listener contributions to keep it going. Another way to help is to donate a vehicle you no longer need. Pickup is free and it's easy. Plus, it can mean hundreds of dollars for WUSF. Learn more at WUSF.org or at 866-WUSF-CAR.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, summer's here and many of us are heading into the invitingly warm waters of our Sunshine State. We'll be splashing on beaches, hopping on boats, fishing, just trying to cool off. Health experts say there's one thing you should know before jumping in the water. In a recent case highlighted in the New England Journal of Medicine, a 74-year-old dove into the waters of the Gulf and got a cut, and days later, bacterial infection spread to his body, leading to an amputation above the knee and a removal of dying skin from his leg and forearm. Doctors identified the cause as Vibrio vulnificus, sometimes known as flesh-eating bacteria, and since last month there have been documented cases in Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas, and Sarasota counties. Maybe you've thought twice, I should say, about swimming because of these health warnings. Give us a call, 813-755-6562. Maybe you've got questions about Vibrio and other bacteria that lurk in the water. 813-755-6562 to join the conversation. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And here to talk about what this disease is, who's most at risk, and how concerned we should really be is Dr. Norman Beatty. He's an Associate Professor of Infectious Disease at the University of Florida School of Medicine. Dr. Beatty, thank you so much for being with us.
You got it. Thanks for having me, and so that we can talk about this risk over the summer.
So what exactly is Vibrio vulnificus?
Now, Vibrio vulnificus is a bacteria that we find in brackish and salt waters around the Gulf and the eastern seaboard. Now, this bacteria is associated with different shellfish and it's found naturally here. Mm-hmm. But when we enter the water with a wound that's open, or even sustain a wound in the water, or eat a contaminated oyster that's not well cooked or raw, we can come down with this infection, and in some cases, it can be deadly.
Okay, so I want to talk about the sort of different ways you can get it, but let me just ask about the case that made it into the New England Journal of Medicine. The pictures aren't for the squeamish. Why did that particular case, do you think, stand out enough to be in this medical journal?
Well, I think it's a great example of what we see here in the state of Florida and other regions in the Mid-Atlantic and the Gulf, where someone would go into the water, sustain a wound, and the bacteria goes into that wound and can cause that necrotizing infection, which often has been coined as a flesh-eating bacterial process. But really, the bacteria is producing these toxins that cause the tissue to die, and this can happen pretty rapidly. And what we're seeing here in this part of the world, and specifically in the Gulf portions of Florida, just different scenarios where we're encountering the bacteria more, and we're seeing more human cases. And, we just, at this time of year when hurricane season is amongst us, and, we're spending time in the water and going and enjoying the beaches. So we should just be thinking about this type of infection and the early signs and symptoms and seeking medical attention.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the if you have a cut on your leg, you can get exposed to the bacteria that way. That can lead to nasty complications with infection. But if you eat, say, a raw or undercooked oyster or some other kind of shellfish, you can also get this infection. But I imagine that would be a different kind of illness, right?
It can be. So most often the person will get an upset stomach, some cramping, maybe some loose stool, some diarrhea. It will pass naturally with most people in a day or two who have normal immune systems. But those folks who are at risk for disseminated infection, who ingest this bacteria, it can get in your bloodstream and cause a really severe sepsis or septic shock, and can be deadly. I've seen those cases before. And the risk factors for those people with severe infections are those living with liver diseases, chronic liver diseases, cirrhosis of the liver, people who are on medications that lower your immune system, autoimmune diseases, and other folks who have, for example, an organ transplant who are on medication to lower their immune system, and people living with diabetes that's not well controlled. And so some of these risk factors can lead to this infection being very rapid and disseminated into the body. And a person could be in the ICU same day that they acquire the infection. So we really just want to be thinking about this, especially if you're in an at-risk group.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Norman Beatty about Vibrio vulnificus. It's a bacteria that thrives in warm, brackish water, so that's salty water like lagoons, estuaries, the ocean. What we should know about the disease as summer gets underway. Maybe you've got questions for the doctor about swimming, fishing or boating or eating seafood safely this summer. You can give us a call. 813-755-6562 is the number. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@wusf.org. So, there could be two people swimming in the same water. One person might get exposed to this, well, they might both get exposed to this, but the outcomes could be quite different for both people depending on their kind of immune system or what else they've got going on.
Oh, that's right. And so, a person may develop a minor infection through a wound, and it may not disseminate into the bloodstream, versus another person may have some risk factors, and it can quickly become a rapid flesh-eating or necrotizing infection or into the bloodstream and make someone very sick and have sepsis. So we do see variations in this. But the most important thing is just to recognize those early signs and symptoms, especially for the wound infections. So if you enter the brackish water, you go and you wade fishing, or you did some boating, and you had a wound and it was exposed to this water, the most important thing to keep in mind is pain at that site, some swelling, some redness developing, and it may be, changing over several hours of time, and even getting a blister, what we call a bulle, near the site of the wound. These would be reasons to go see a doctor the same day, even go to an emergency department. And what I usually advocate for is our patients telling providers, hey, I've been in the brackish water, been in the salt water, this wound was exposed, consider Vibrio as a cause of this, just so they can be put on the right antibiotics.
So there are some red flags, but is there anything you can do in the meantime to slow it down? Like, is there any point at that point, if you're thinking, okay, I might even have this by now, I'm heading to the emergency department, should you clean it up? Should you try and apply some Neosporin or something, or does that not work at that point?
Well, we already have signs and symptoms. You just need to go to the hospital. But what I would say that most importantly is if we're anticipating going into the water, let's protect our feet. Let's protect our legs from abrasions and scrapes. Let's think about our activities so we can protect from developing these wounds. If you already have a wound, trying to keep it covered, even considering letting it heal before you go into the water. And so, we're seeing an increase in cases over the last 5 to 10 years. And we even have a recent case in Hillsborough, recently documented. And we usually see our cases increasing throughout the summer and into the early fall periods each season. And so really being just aware of these risks and protection in the water around Florida is important.
Well, we've been speaking with Dr. Norman Beatty about Vibrio vulnificus, a flesh-eating disease found in warm waters, how we can stay safe. Dr. Beatty, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
All right. Pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me.
Well, coming up a bit later in the show, we'll talk with the survivor of a shark attack and an author who wrote about it. But in just a few moments, we're going to summer camp. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
WUSF reporters show up when a vote is taken or when a business closes. These are reporters who live, shop, and work here, same as you.
Every day, something happens in this community that matters. A road project gets funded. A new art exhibit opens up. You rely on WUSF reporters because they live here.
WUSF News is common ground. It's what's happening in your neighborhood and your sports club. It's a kind of infrastructure, and you notice it most when it's gone. WUSF is your spot for local.
I'm Declan Sheehy, Chief Advancement Officer at Senior Friendship Centers. Our partnership with WUSF has inspired a shared sense of connection you only get from public media.
Sponsorship info at wusf.org/sponsorship.
The Foundation for a Healthy St. Petersburg is creating a community in which good health helps all people thrive, regardless of race, focused on community, driven by data, fueled for change. Learn more at healthystpete.foundation.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, summer is here, and all week we're exploring ways to make the most of it. Today, we're taking a look at local programs that help shape a child's break. Schools out and parents often face the annual puzzle of balancing screen time, learning, and fresh air. We're going to look past the brochures today and discuss the actual value of some of these summer camp programs. Maybe you went to a local summer camp growing up. If you're a parent or a grandparent now, how do you track down high-quality regional programs that don't break the bank? You can join the conversation. Give us a call. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Talking summer camps. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@wusf.org. And joining us to share an inside look at the regional summer camp ecosystem, Mary Pat King, CEO of Girl Scouts of West Central Florida. Mary Pat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Also joined by Janet White, Director of Education at MOSI, the Museum of Science and Innovation, just down the road from us here at WUSF. Janet, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
And Sarah Rowe is the Studio Programs Manager at the Tampa Museum of Art. Sarah, thank you as well.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Mary Pat, let me start with you. Beyond childcare, which I think is kind of a concern for parents over the summer in many cases, how does a week at camp build real independence in a kid?
Yeah, at camp, at Girl Scout camps and other camps, this is an opportunity for your child to build independent skills from you in a structured environment that challenges them beyond their comfort zones, but also encourages them to reach new heights in what they think they're able to do. They grow their self-confidence, they grow their self-esteem, and they make new friends and they have fun. And that is such an important part of childhood.
Did you go to summer camp as a kid?
I did. I went to a week of Catholic camp when I was a kid, Camp Guggenheim.
Okay. And what did you take away from that? I mean, what do you sort of carry forward when you're thinking about summer programs now?
Yeah, so as a mother, my daughter has gone to Girl Scout camp for many years, as well as other camps provided by local hosts. And what I see in her growth is I see her come back feeling like she has a voice, but also feeling like she has the desire to be outdoors more, to have more fun in the outdoors, and bolder in how she makes new friends, which that confidence building in a peer-to-peer environment is super important.
Mm-hmm. Janet, educators often talk about the summer slide where kids forget what they learned in school. Do you buy into that?
I do buy into that as an educator for my whole career. I think that MOSI Camp's able to keep that learning going while having fun, and the kids don't even realize that they're learning throughout the summer because they're so actively engaged doing hands-on activities, science experiments, robotics, creating video games, so they don't even realize all the learning that they're actually doing.
Mm-hmm. How do you take something like physics, which can be a bit intimidating, right, and make it into a fun and understandable activity for a kid in like 5 days?
An example of that would be making a catapult out of popsicle sticks. So there's so many physics terms that you can teach with that catapult, and then they can go have a marshmallow catapult fight out in the yard.
Okay, that sounds fun. Sarah, museums are places where you're not normally supposed to touch stuff. How do your camps kind of flip the script and let kids get messy and create?
Yeah, well, we're really lucky. Sorry, there's a bit of feedback. At Museum of Art, we have 3 large classrooms for mixed media, ceramics, and have a tech classroom as well.
Okay.
So we've got some designated spaces to get messy. And the students get to explore the galleries, take inspiration from the different exhibitions we have on view, and then get to make their own artworks in the classrooms.
Yeah, and then, I mean, downtown art museums, they can sometimes feel a little bit intimidating, right? So how do you make sure those programs feel welcoming, feel accessible to families, no matter what their background?
Yeah, so we've got a variety of camps for different interests, and that is our goal, is to bring students to the museum and show that that is a place for them and give them a sense of belonging, because then they have activities that they get to do here all week, and they spend time in the galleries, get to know the place, get to know our staff. And there's so many students that just keep coming back over year after year, and then throughout the year as well, they'll bring their families. So once they have a student here, that gives them a sense of place and belonging here, which is really our goal, is to have them welcome and enjoy camps and give them inspiration and new art tools and everything. And then we also have scholarships to try and access students that might not otherwise be able to take our summer camps.
Yeah, if you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about summer camps. With us is Sarah Rose, the Studio Programs Manager at the Tampa Museum of Art. Also with us, Janet White, Director of Education at MOSI. That's the Museum of Science and Innovation. And Mary Pat King, CEO of the Girl Scouts of West Central Florida. I want to hear from you too. What was your summer camp experience growing up? 813-755-6562. Maybe you've got kids in summer camp right now or grandchildren. What are you seeing around the Tampa Bay region? What would you like to see more of? But if you've got questions for our guests or comments, you want to weigh in on the conversation, 813-755-6562 is the number, 813-755-6562. You can also email floridaMatters@wusf.org. Mary Pat, a lot of people might think of Girl Scout camp as strictly for girls who are already members. So how do you welcome kids who've never been part of the organization?
Yeah, that's such a great question. We do that in two ways. So we will serve about 800 kids this summer at our Girl Scout camp. And we welcome girls, any girls, to summer camp and encourage them to join Girl Scouts while they're there. Usually we do find that after they attend a week of camp, they want to join Girl Scouts because they have such a good time. But we also partner with amazing organizations. So for example, last week, we partnered with the Spring of Tampa Bay and Casa Pinellas, and we hosted Camp Hope, which is for children who are served in their domestic violence shelters. And so we do that Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch. We partner with Nature's Classroom. Our camps are year-round. They're open year-round. We have 4 beautiful camps, 1,000 acres, 168 structures, and every single weekend our camps are available to our girls and to partners like that.
It's, I guess, hurricane season. Do you have to kind of factor some of that into your planning as well?
Oh, absolutely. We were very impacted by a hurricane season 2 years ago. But thankfully, our rangers really got us back on track, and our supporters. I will say that we just installed a new peri-weather station, and it helps us to assess inclement weather and take really quick action for anything that might be emergencies. We have our camp staff. If ever you see camp staff on a resume, hire them. They are amazing. Our camp staff are between 18 and 22, and they have been drilled on safety procedures for any number of circumstances, but especially inclement weather, which you can imagine is something that happens in the evenings a lot here in Florida.
Janet, I'm wondering, science and technology are changing so fast, right? So, we're trying to grapple with all kinds of things like the influence of AI, other kinds of aspects of science that are changing very fast. How do you kind of refresh your camp curriculum every single year so a returning camper always can experience something new and feel like they have a handle on what's happening?
Yeah, I think that goes to the staff that we hire. We hire a lot of teachers that are teaching throughout the year. We keep our MOSI staff up to date on what's happening. And I think it's just getting that continued training for our staff. And I know that the Hillsborough County teachers that we bring on also are receiving training throughout the year, because it is important to make sure that we're staying on the top trends and keeping up for what the kids are going to be needing to do in the future.
813-755-6562 is the number to join the conversation, talking about summer camps. What summer camps did you enjoy as a kid? Maybe you're thinking about that. If you have children of your own and sending them off to summer camp this year, what's available out in the Tampa Bay region? 813-755-6562. Or maybe you're looking for some ideas. Maybe you're thinking, I've already had a week and a half out of school. I can't handle anymore. Kids have got to go to camp. You can join the conversation. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, Sarah, let me come back to you. Your camps cover a wide variety of age ranges. How do you keep a teen engaged and also keep like a 7-year-old happy?
Lots and lots of planning for both. So we do have our camps kind of split up into different age groups. So they're not always, the different age groups aren't necessarily learning together at the same time, but they are spending, their snack times and lunch times together. And so each camp is planned and geared towards those age groups. And all of it is really, choices, giving students choices. They work on their projects that they have going on. If they're finished, we have extra projects for them to work on in between. And then we also have opportunities to take the students up for extra visits to the galleries and do different visual thinking strategies, activities to get the students thinking about the artworks that they're looking at. And, with the young kids, a lot of it is playing games and finding different activities for them to work together. With the older teens, a lot of it is just engaging with what they're interested in and helping them find inspiration for what they want to accomplish in camp and giving them some of that, independence to make those choices.
Yeah, and what's it like for a kid spending, a whole week making their own art? They're down the hall from some world-class museum exhibits. Do you think the proximity to some of those artworks changes the way they see their own talent or inspires them a bit?
Yes, I'd absolutely hope so. I'll share a personal story. My first interaction of making art in a museum was just a visit on a day, right? But as kids, we were allowed to sit in front of this artwork and then make a replica, right? And we were just 8 years old, which for me was just such an exciting experience to be I'm making the same thing that this famous artist that's here in this museum also made. And, it gave me a sense of belonging in that space. And so I see that happening over and over with students where they start to connect the dots. They learn that, this is how this artwork was made. This is how this artist started out. They had to learn how to make this before they could ever reach, a museum. So I'm starting out just like these other artists. Maybe that artist didn't go to a museum to start out, but they were inspired by other artworks around them. So it's really exciting to see students find that inspiration, take it off in whatever direction, they want to take, because they've got all their own ideas and things that they're excited about making. And so that's what I love to see in summer art camp, is a student finding that inspiration from the artwork they see on exhibit and then adding their own spin to it and, just having the best time.
Sort of on that theme, Janet, that kind of spirit of play or experimentation. In science, experiments fail all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see rockets blow up, an experiment may not go the way you want it to, but how do you teach kids to not get discouraged when their project doesn't turn out the way they planned?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of science. When you hear the word fail, we've turned that word into it's your first attempt in learning. There are no failures. We want you to iterate. The engineering process is trying something, what worked, what didn't work, trying to make it better, try again, iterate, make it different. And I think that is something that we definitely encourage at Mosey summer camps. And I think it is important for real world problem solving application when they grow up as well.
Mm-hmm. I want to just ask real quick about the post-pandemic landscape. Mary Pat, do you find that you've noticed a bit of a change in social or emotional needs of children entering your programs in the last couple of years?
We have, in fact, we have a State of the Girl report that we conducted with the other Girl Scout CEOs across the country, across the state, and we saw that there is an increase in screen time. There's an increase in sedentary behavior. There's an increase in mental health challenges. And at camp, we get kids moving. We get them connected to each other off screens. We encourage them to dream about what they want to do, to explore how they love art, but do that in nature. One of the programs we have this season is called My Life, My Body, My World, and it's sponsored by Baycare. And we're really giving them tools how they can use nature to connect and to take care of their body, physical health, their mental well-being, how they can use nature as a source for continuous renewal, and how they can focus on what needs to be made better in the world as a result, especially environmental protection. And that's mind expander experience.
Well, we're going to leave the conversation there, but we've been discussing summer camps with Mary Pat King, CEO of Girl Scouts of West Central Florida. Mary Pat, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also with us for this part of the program, Janet White, Director of Education at Mosey. Janet, thank you as well.
Thank you.
And Sarah Rose, Studio Programs Manager at the Tampa Museum of Art. Sarah, thank you too.
Thank you very much.
Well, coming up next on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're going to hear from somebody who survived their boat sinking in the Gulf and a shark attack and much more. It's an epic story of survival. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local returns. Stay with us.
I'm Scott Tong. The birds you see flying around, they're dinosaurs.
You look at a robin, you look at a sparrow, I mean, that looks nothing like a T-Rex or a Triceratops. But really, dinosaurs were a very diverse group.
How did birds survive the mass extinction that wiped out the other dinos? Next time, here and now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
The 2026 World Cup is coming to North America this summer, and our partners at NPR want to make sure you're pitch ready. Soccer Edition will bring you the latest World Cup stories and buzz from now until the champion is crowned on July 19th in New Jersey. So if you're a Rowdies fan or you love a global party, listen to Soccer Edition every Wednesday afternoon on All Things Considered, starting at 4 on WUSF 89.7.
No matter the situation, SPCA Tampa Bay can help. Every animal, every story, every family. You belong at SPCA Tampa Bay, a key part of this community for over 80 years. Learn more at spcatampabay.org.
WUSF's Wake Up Call newsletter keeps you informed of what's happening around you. From local news to cool events, we keep you in the know every weekday morning. To sign up, head to WUSF.org and subscribe to the Wake Up Call newsletter.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. If you were on a fishing trip and your boat sank, would you have what it takes to survive? In 2022, 3 friends from Louisiana were boating in the Gulf of Mexico when their boat sank. Then a 10-foot tiger shark attacked. In Deep Water, it's a new book by Michael Togus. It tells the story of how the trio spent more than 24 hours fighting for their lives in the waters of the Gulf. Togus joins us now along with Lou Nguyen, one of the 3 survivors. Michael and Lou, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
You can join the conversation. Maybe you've got questions on how they braved the elements. The number is 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Michael, I wonder if I could start by asking you to read from part of your book. Do you have a copy in front of you?
Not right in front of me, but this was the book I'd been searching to do for the last 6 years. It has every element I was looking for, especially twists, turns, surprises, and off-the-chart survival story.
Yeah, it certainly is off the chart. Well, indulge me if you would. I'm just going to read from a passage of the book. This is page 83, and this is after the 3 have been sort of in the water for some time. Lou, Sonny, and Paul are fighting for their lives just 20 miles away from Station Venice, and no one on land has a clue about the situation. At this particular moment, every early evening, the situation has reached a new low. They'd kicked with every bit of their strength and even factored in the current, so instead of heading straight for the rig, they did so at a sharp angle. But again, despite their calculations and best efforts, the currents has swept them wide of the 3rd rig. Now the sun has set, and there's just a pale pink light on the western horizon. They check their phones for service, and as before, no signal. They're too far from the shore or any cell towers. Sonny, Lou, and Paul are just specks in the sea, utterly alone. So this is kind of hours after the boat has sunk. The 3 friends are in the water, trying desperately to swim to a series of oil rigs, and each time the current carries them away. But let's just kind of back up a little bit. So as you describe in this book, Michael, this was Paul's boat. This was the first time he'd taken it out. It was something he'd been saving up for a while. 25-foot fishing boat, 2 engines. They'd left a marina in a place called Empire. It's on the Mississippi River. It's about, I think, an hour's drive or so from New Orleans. And they were 10 miles out in the ocean. So what happened to them? What went wrong?
We don't know for sure why the boat sank. It could have been a crack in the hull because it was a used boat that he bought. It could have been the way it was tied to an oil rig while they were fishing. But everything happened so fast. As Lou will explain, they barely had time to grab life jackets.
Yeah. Lou, what do you remember about the moment the boat went down? Like, what were you thinking?
Oh, I remember the boat. We were trying to go back home, but the boat was taking on water, and the boat was new. So when I grabbed the life jackets, they had a bunch of kid ones and they had adult ones. So I just threw it on the ground, and once the boat went under, we grabbed the ice chest and put on the life jacket, grabbed the ice chest and tied them together and just hung on for dear life.
Yeah. And
yeah,
you, all of you were experienced fishermen, but you weren't the strongest swimmer of the bunch, right? And as you point out, you tied the ice chests together to help you stay afloat. What was it like trying to steer those ice chests and swim towards the oil rigs? I mean, it just sounds like it was pretty exhausting.
It was exhausting. The ice chest would act like sails, so it would take a long time to get to these oil rigs. And once we get there, the current would take us a different way. So it was a really hard thing.
Yeah. So Michael, all afternoon, after the boat had sunk, they'd been dealing with these waves getting higher and higher. They'd been in the blazing sun. Massive jellyfish the size of basketballs have been kind of swarming them. And then the sun goes down and it gets cold. So the odds are really against them, right? There's a bunch of things that really mean it's going to be hard for them to survive.
Absolutely. In fact, the Coast Guard gave them a 1% chance of being found alive. So a lot of strange things had to happen just right for Lou to be talking on the show. So when I was writing In Deep Water, I'm thinking, even myself as I'm writing, these guys are never going to make it. It's just off the charts.
Yeah. Now, Lou, you'd caught sharks before on fishing expeditions. So was that kind of in the back of your mind as this ordeal dragged on?
Yeah, that is because, we catch sharks, normally when we go offshore, they're out there, of course, and we call them the tax man. They'll eat your fish when you're reeling them up. And as the night's getting, is becoming night, we're going out farther. So, it's kind of like, oh, there's bigger fish and we're, I don't know where we're going, but we just got to hang on and huddle up at that point.
Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Lou Nguyen, is one of three friends who spent more than 24 hours fighting for their lives off the coast of Louisiana after their fishing boat sank in 2022. Also with us, Michael Togus is the author of a book about the dramatic ordeal. It's called In Deep Water. So after a night in the water, the sun comes up, but at this point the sharks are sort of circling. Michael, what are the kind of sharks that people should be cautious about in the Gulf? Because not all of them are dangerous, right? So which sharks should people be really paying attention to?
The top three in terms of human attacks are bull sharks, great whites, and tiger sharks, which is what Lou faced, literally face to face. 6 inches from his own head was this 10-foot tiger shark with his mouth open.
Yeah, okay. So before that happens, though, there's another sort of series of dramatic incidents. At some point, Paul, this is the owner of the boat, and the way you describe it, Michael, he feels quite a bit of responsibility. Sort of feels like, oh, this is maybe my fault for getting them in the situation. Although, as you point out, it's unclear why the boat sank. But he decides, I'm going to swim to a shrimping boat. So he tries to make it, and then what happens?
It's absolutely heartbreaking. So he breaks the vow of let's stay together because he wants to rescue his friend. So he thinks he has the strength to make it to the boat, and he almost does. And then he sees a puff of black smoke come from the engine, and the boat pulls away before they see Paul. So now he's totally alone, and he doesn't have the advantage of holding on to the coolers, and he's preparing to die.
Yeah. And there's some interesting kind of, little details in the book about where they are, because they're still not too far offshore, right? 10 miles or so offshore, floating around, and at some point they cross this line of debris floating in the water. This is sort of where the water coming out of the Mississippi meets the Gulf, And so there's a bunch of stuff floating around. I think Paul grabs a glove
Yes.
from the water, right? So let's.
Yeah, he's trying to think of, is there anything useful here? And it turned out,
Yeah, and he's really sort of clutching at straws, so to speak. So Lou, you and Sonny are on your own at this point. You're with the two ice chests. You're trying to power them towards another oil rig in the distance, and then the shark attack. So tell us about that. What was that like?
So at this point, I'm tired already. I already told Sonny I'm really tired. I'm drained. I don't know if I can make it. And we're trying to push, and then we're back to back at this point, and he's pushing me along. And boom, a shark comes out of nowhere and bites my life jacket, and it's literally 6 to 8 inches in front of my face. The shark is probably 12 to 14 inches wide, the face. And all I'm doing, I'm screaming, Sonny, Sonny, Sonny. And he can't hear me. But so I hit the shark, and then it didn't go anywhere. I hit him in the nose, like they say, and then it didn't work. So, and I was looking, and all I could see is his eyes. So I just jammed both my thumbs in his eyes, and it took off.
Huh. Wow.
So, yeah.
It's amazing to me that you were able to think of the things you're supposed to do in a shark attack in that moment, because by this point you'd been in the water for more than 24 hours trying to swim. You're exhausted, stung by jellyfish, sunburnt, basically on the point of death, and still you're able to think, okay, I got to punch the shark on the nose or jab it in the eye, and those two things actually ended up working.
It's never thought I'd be in that situation, but it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. So at this point, I mean, there is, the twist in the tail is the way they got rescued. The three of them, Lou, Sonny, and Paul, still have some battery left in their phones, incredibly. And at some point, Paul, who's on his own, floating around, realizes he's back in range. So, Michael, how does he actually manage to get a message back to land, and how does that lead to their rescue?
it really is amazing that he could do this in the water. He sees that his battery only has 2 or 3% left. So you can imagine him with shaking hands, opening up a text that actually comes through and knowing that what I send back is going to mean the difference between us living or not. And he's smart enough and cognizant enough to take a screenshot and then expand it to include some land and send that back. And then boom, his phone goes dead and he can't even hear from the guy if he got it for sure or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I said, it has every element of disaster, but so many elements of these little minor miracles that keep happening.
Yeah. And then, Lou, I'm wondering, I mean, has this put you off fishing? Do you still like to go out? Have you managed to kind of compartmentalize that part of your life?
You know what? I've been compartmentalized, I guess you can say that. And I've been fishing, and I'm still down to go fishing out back in the Gulf.
Mm-hmm.
Be a lot more prepared.
Yeah.
But but it was an experience that I wouldn't take back now. But being prepared is everything.
What would your advice be to folks, like having had this experience yourself, people who are heading out fishing and 10 miles out or however far out they're going in the ocean?
I got a few things. First thing is you let people know where you're going. Always let people let family members or friends know where you're going. And second thing is just know the equipment. They have personal locating beacons that you can bring along that can locate you. Mm-hmm. And then just having the right safety gear.
Yeah. Makes all
the
difference.
Making sure that safety gear is everything.
Yeah. Well, Lou Nguyen is one of 3 friends who spent more than 24 hours fighting for their lives off the coast of Louisiana back in 2022 after their fishing boat sank. Lou, thank you so much. It's an epic story. I really appreciate you joining us to talk about your experience.
I appreciate you having me, and it's been a pleasure.
And Michael Togas is the author of the book about the dramatic ordeal in deep water. Michael, thank you so much as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, that's our show for today. Next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, what are you reading this summer? We'll check in with 3 independent bookstores from around Tampa Bay to get the scoop on hot summer reads. You can join the conversation Let us know what is on your nightstand or maybe your beach read. Tune in Wednesday at noon. That's our show for today. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
A Spanish woman falls victim to a scammer on a dating app. Her son, a journalist, goes to Lagos, Nigeria to see if he can find that scammer. Instead, he uncovers a whole cottage industry of men